So I thought, and I still think, that the Lakers can be more competitive in this series with the Nuggets than they were last year. Welcome in. Here the Doug Gottlieb Show on a Monday, where we got a lot of hoop to talk about. We have finally arrived in NFL Draft Week, and what exactly the Commanders were doing, bringing in 4 top quarterback prospects at the same time. But let's start with the Lakers, because what happens is, fatigue makes cowards of us all. Right? It just does. Fatigue makes cowards of us all. Makes mortals of immortals. And the Lakers, especially Anthony Davis and LeBron James, looked completely gassed in the fourth quarter. LeBron only took 2 shots in 9 minutes in the fourth quarter. And they got, I don't want to say blown out, because it was a relatively respectable final score, but it wasn't really that close. And look, I'll credit the Lakers. They knew they had a D'Angelo problem last year, but they also re-signed D'Angelo, which they didn't have to. And though they brought in Gabe Vincent, he's never been healthy for them, so they didn't have him the other night. But the point was that my entire spiel, if you will, and the good news is that Jason Stewart was here last year as my producer, and, of course, Dan Byer was here last year as part of the show, is last year we get done watching this playoff series, and I was like, look, I don't know why you bring back D'Angelo Russell. If the goal is to beat the Nuggets, you can't beat the Nuggets with D'Angelo Russell on the floor. Right? He's just not effective enough. Not effective enough. So he's not a good enough defender. He's soft on the boards, and whatever happens in terms of his confidence in scoring, it seems to go away at times against the Nuggets. Missed a couple of layups. And he's not the only reason they lost. Like, LeBron wasn't very good either. He had 7 turnovers. And LeBron, just obviously fatigued right before our eyes. But it's one of those deals where if you're honest with yourself, no matter how much you think the Lakers are better this year because they figured out a way to use Rui in this series as it went on and figured out how to guard them, and if you can't play your starting point guard, and, oh, yeah, by the way, your backup point guard is essentially LeBron, and he's too tired to do it in the fourth quarter. What? You're screwed. You're screwed. Here's Darvin Ham, head coach of the Lakers, summing up D'Angelo Russell's performance in Game 1.
D'Lo is a huge reason why we're here in the first place. I'm not going to bail out on my player just because he's missing the shots that he normally makes. Those same shots were going in against New Orleans and other teams that he's played in, games he's played in to help us get to this point. It wasn't his night. Shooters are going to have nights like that. But I want him to remain aggressive. That was a good thing I saw. He remained aggressive. His energy remained great. He remained positive. And we'll go back and try to get better from the film and try to have a better performance Game 2.
All right. I mean, that's what you have to say as a coach, but internally you sit there and go all right, am I taking all the games, or am I taking the fact that he doesn't play well against Nuggets is not a good matchup for him? Here's LeBron on the mindset of his team.
Given his team's recent history with Denver, how do you fight the feeling of here we go again?
For me, or are you talking about, that doesn't matter to me. I don't ever get into here we go again mindset. It's one game, they protected their home court. We have another opportunity on Monday to come back and be better. We know how challenging it's going to be. We know how difficult this opponent is and how great they are. So that's all a part of the game. Start doubting you. I don't get into the doubt mindset. That's not me. I'm the wrong guy to ask.
Look, and it's fine, but it does feel like that in watching it, and it feels like if they don't win tonight, there can be that feeling of inevitability. So, yeah, I actually really understand that one. I understand the question. Even if LeBron doesn't feel that himself, I think everybody else watching does. And he's like, man, we got him. We got him down 10, and their bench isn't as good, and they boat raced us anyway. It's Doug Gottlieb Show here on Fox Sports Radio. Here's James Worthy, Big Game James, Hall of Famer, talking about Jokic, on the other hand.
He's Magic and Kareem on the floor at the same time.
Yeah.
He's a guard. He makes great decisions, hell of a passer. And then when he wants to be Kareem, he goes down and dominates. So he's a special player that does a lot of things, and your antennas have to be up.
Antennas have to be up. He's amazing. And you'll get all different sorts of. What was the piece you sent me there, Jay Stu, on who was the two comedians that were talking on one of the ESPN alternative broadcasts? I think it was Cedric the Entertainer, and who was the other comedian?
Huh. No, I think that was your other producer who sent you that. That doesn't sound familiar. I don't find Cedric the Entertainer funny. In fact, I've often asked people, who is Cedric entertaining?
I know Cedric. I actually like him as a good dude. Wait, you didn't send me that today? Where did I get that today? I got several different.
Probably Adam Klug or Ryan Music.
Was not Klug. Who sent it to me? I'm trying to see where it was. Where we were talking about it. Anyway, I'll find it. I'll send it to you. People are having a tough time with Jokic. I would just going like, yeah, he's really that good. He's really that dominant. He's really that awkward. And yet super effective. It's almost as if what they saw last year, they don't actually believe it to be true. Isn't that a weird thing? Like Steph, when he's had his magical moments. To this day, if you watch Steph, every time he shoots the ball, you're convinced it's going in and not missing it. Whereas we're still not there yet with Jokic. We're still like, I can't believe how good this guy is and how big and awkward and funky he is and yet how effective he is. Maybe here's what I'm saying. Our mindset, I do think that all of these things are it's a Jokic game. It feels normal to him. But I will tell you, I think there's a lot of people that still are doubting what they're seeing, or they went from curious to amused to impressed to, yeah, I don't know. Can he keep doing this? It seems so slow and so easy to time and so easy to figure out, and yet nobody can figure it out. Byron, am I making sense when you watch those games and you watch how Jokic moves and the things he does? I don't know. I have given into I haven't seen anybody like him, and man, is he good, and he does just so much funky, weird, but effective stuff. But I do think there's lots of people that because of how it can look and it can be a little clunky, and he has just that awkwardness to it, that there's a lot of people still like, yeah, I don't really know if he's as good as we say as good as we say he is.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Or maybe they just don't watch a lot of Nuggets games because of him being a center.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
that's fair.
Yeah. Wasn't a great weekend of NBA hoop, right? And it had
not
the weekend.
It's not good at all.
I mean, it had the one cool thing was Lillard coming out and just completely taking over in the first half.
Like that was the second half. Yeah,
didn't score 35 at the half. Doesn't score in the second half.
Yeah,
but the game was over at the half, and Lillard was the reason why. Like that was, you're like, man, how are they going to look without him? And I thought that Damian Lillard would be better without Giannis because he's kind of used to being a bit of a one-man show. There's a lot of radio to it. A lot of to what we see in basketball. And here's what I mean. Radio shows are usually one guy shows, or one guy with, the Dan style where you have one guy and you have a bunch of people. Or you have a two-person show and they got to go back and forth. And what happens is we all, as hosts, we get pigeonholed into you can only do it with one way or the other, which is my brain doesn't work that way. I like doing different styles of it. I like when we do Dan Patrick. It's Dan and I doing it, Dan Byer, and I doing it together. I enjoy that. This show is kind of wired different, where Dan's a very big part of the show. So too is maybe more. He wants to be more than he is. I'm kidding. Sam and Jason. But there are people that you can't do I'll give you an example. Mike Golick was as good a number two as you're ever going to find. He knew how to laugh at the right jokes. He knew how to bring analysis at the right time. He knew how to play off of you. That's why Mike and Mike was so good, because they had their chairs. Greeny was the driver, and he was the reactor, and it just worked for a long time. What inevitably happens, though, is the guy sitting in that number two chair wants to drive or wants to do his own show, and the guy doing his, leading the show is like, what do I need this guy for? Those things are hard, but you're better off in your role. That there will be people for me who are like, well, when in a two-person show, like, just tell me the role beforehand and I can do it. I can change my brain to how much I interact. If you're two-chair, you don't have to do much of the reads either. That part's fun. Cowherd, I know he's had various co-hosts, but they're really more update people. But he's a solo act. Now, he's done the 2-person show in Sports Nation when he's a reactor. But that's what Damian Lillard is. He's been a solo host. It's been his show, his team for like a decade, and trying to play with somebody else's team, that's just hard to do. It's just really hard to do. So I respect people who can do, Buyer, for example, can do a solo show, can do the update thing, can be a co-host. He can even make fries and nuggets during the break, and he's still good, can do it all. But a lot of people don't have that versatility. They just can do one thing and one thing only. I'm a solo host. I'm an update person. I'm a 2-person show. I'm a reactor. I'm a driver, whatever, and that's what they do. And I think that at some point in time, we get to this place of that's who I am. It's hard to take a secondary role. It's Doug Gottlieb Show here on Fox Sports Radio. And Ric Bucher joins us. We got one game in from all the NBA playoff series. We got the play-in obviously done as well. And, of course, you can read Ric's work at foxsports.com, and you can see him on a variety of our shows on Fox Sports 1, including Speak. Let's start with the Celtics, okay, because that first half felt like Nuke LaLoosh, right? Announcing the presence with authority. How much do you feel like the rest of this series is going to mirror Game 1?
I don't know that it will. The issue that I have is, Boston just has way, way, way too much talent for Miami. The disparity is just far too great. I'm not in love with Boston's execution, so I don't really think it's going to be an issue in terms of them getting past Miami. I still could see Miami taking a game in the series because Boston has had a tendency to relax at some point in every series early on. But the concerns that I have about Boston making good on being the only team to win 60-plus games during the regular season still very much exist in watching this game because there's times where I'm like, okay, would you guys stop shooting threes? Miami doesn't have any size out there. You should be able to attack the rim or at least get threes off of the drive and kick and off of penetration and show me that you're kind of organized and there's a plan here. It still feels like it's your turn, my turn a little too often. And obviously the game was out of hand, so you can kind of see that happen. But in spite of it being a blowout, I still watched it. And I was like, I still see the same tendencies that make me wonder that when they play a team where the talent disparity isn't as great, are they going to make good on what they did during the regular season?
It's a great question, and I don't really know the answer to it. Joel Embiid's eye, how big an issue is that?
I don't know that it's his eye as much as his just overall condition. I just don't know how after taking 2 months off, even though it didn't look like he necessarily put on weight, he's just not very good in his ability to stay in game shape when he's not playing games. And I think the other wrinkle that they have is with Embiid being out for 2 months, kind of became the Tyrese Maxey show. And what I'm seeing them try to figure out is how do we get back to balancing these two elements? They were able to and did that pretty well at the beginning of the year, but it was primarily the Joel Embiid show. And now, with him kind of trying to work his way back into shape, you have to find a way to kind of make it more of the Maxey show with Embiid still on the floor. And I just watching them play, I don't get the sense that they have a really good handle on that. And I'm watching Embiid, especially in the fourth quarter against the Knicks. He was 0 for 5 to get to the free throw line, but he looks exhausted, and I don't know how that's going to change, especially with the bodies that New York can throw at him. And so for me, it's not so much the eye. I mean, the eye issue aside, I just don't know that Embiid is ready or the Sixers are ready to carry the weight necessary against the Knicks team that we know, with Coach Thibodeau is going to grind you every minute that they possibly can.
Okay, let's get to the West. Let's start with the Lakers, and obviously they were on fumes in the second half. You got D'Angelo Russell, who once again looked unplayable in the series, missing layups, and we know about some of the defensive inadequacies. But what about LeBron? 7 turnovers in the game. Looked like he didn't have anything in the tank, really kind of passive in the fourth quarter when the game was still in question. What's our takeaway from Game 1 looking forward for the Lakers?
That we once again forgot how good Denver is and how the matchups. We say it every year, right? Or the last 2 years. It's like, man, I don't see any matchups that work for the Lakers. But maybe they could. And against maybe some teams they could. At Denver, they just can't. This is the thing that perplexes me about LeBron, which is the passivity with the game still on the line. I get that he's 39 years old. Mm-hmm. I get that he might be fatigued. But he took 2 shots in 9 minutes in the fourth quarter. Yeah. At least go down swinging. But he was content, and he had shot the 3 well in the game. He was, 3 for 5, I think, from three-point range. 10 for 16 in the game overall, scoring-wise. And yet it was, I am going to swing the ball to D'Angelo Russell. I'm going to continue to swing the ball to D'Angelo Russell, who was 1 for 10 in his first. At some point, if you are a great player, in some people's minds the greatest player, and the game hangs in the balance, the idea that I would put the responsibility of winning this game on D'Angelo Russell or anybody else is just so baffling to me. I just don't, help me out here, because I don't understand that mindset. Okay, so you were 10 for 16. Posterity-wise, 20 years from now, people look at the box score and go, oh, well, LeBron had a good game. But in reality, if you watch it, why didn't you go try to win the game? I'd rather have you 10 for 30 than 10 for 16, and I'm looking at it going, they have no chance of winning this because LeBron's decided that, I don't know. I don't want to say it wasn't worth it, but it just felt like a calculation. I'm good. Let's see if somebody else can win this game. That mindset from a great player is totally baffling to me. The Mavericks weren't even going against Kawhi, and were non-competitive for half of that game. Yeah. How much hope is there for Dallas in the series? I think there's plenty of hope. The Clippers, again, kind of came into the playoffs. We've seen this over and over and over again, where they're kind of shamed into, we need to make a statement. People think we really suck, so let's make a statement. But they don't sustain it. And they actually, Dallas, fourth quarter, they're got it to 12, 14. They were feeling like we have a shot. We can come back on them. And plenty of teams have over the course of this season. They've blown some really big leads. So I honestly, I think they got the best of the Clippers. And Clippers are very much a front-running team. When they get up like that, everybody's feeling good. Paul George is taking contested shots and making them. You turn that around and you make it a possession-by-possession game, and the whole dynamic changes. So I expected Dallas to win the series, and this game, honestly, doesn't move me off of that. Not at this point. I'm going to need to see. I'm going to need to see a little bit more from the Clippers before I jump off the Mavs bandwagon.
Will we see Zion in this series against the Thunder?
I would be shocked. I would be shocked if we did. It could end up being a long series, but considering his history, I find it really hard. And here's the other issue: if he can't go 100%, then he really can't play. He's not, in spite of his size, he's not posting up and playing out of the mid post and distributing. If he can't face up and attack off the dribble and try to get to the rim, what is he giving you? He's not a floor spacer. He's not a work from the elbow, step back. Like, I can be a threat. I can be a scoring threat from the elbow or the mid post. And if everybody's moving, I'll find the cutters. It can't be LeBron. So I don't expect that he's going to play, and I don't know what kind of impact he would have unless he's 100%. And what we've seen over the course of Zion's career is that it takes him longer, not shorter, to come back from injury.
Ric Bucher. You can check out his work at foxsports.com. See him on Speak. Bucher, the best man. Can't wait to talk more as the playoffs roll on. Thanks for being our guest.
You got it, Doug.